My name is Leslie, and although this name is usually associated with singers, gloss and frivolity, I am completely different. I'm a software developer, and, I'm really proud of it. It's not just a profession, it's a part of me, my quiet, cozy world where everything follows logic, where every character on the screen matters, where chaos turns into order. For almost 5 years now, I've been living this, with lines of code, tasks that click like puzzles, and moments of immense satisfaction when you click on the run button, and the system, as if by magic, does exactly what you wanted. This moment is my personal applause and silence. I work mostly from home, and to be honest, this is a real gift for me. No stuffy offices, no useless milling, just me, my screens, and silence that can be interrupted at will. I rarely go to the office, at most a couple of times a week, if there is an important meeting that I can't attend without my personal presence, and honestly, that's more than enough for me. People who have known me for a long time often say that I am not very sociable. They're probably right. I really prefer virtual communication. Video calls, voice chats, and text messages are my thing. This does not mean that I avoid people out of hatred or some kind of dislike. Not at all. It's just that I feel safe. It makes it easier for me to be myself, without tension, without trying to please, without the exhausting hypocrisy of secular smiles. My social battery runs out frighteningly fast. When there are too many conversations, gestures, and glances around, and at home, at the computer, I recover like a flower that has finally been given water. And before we continue, write in the comments from which city you are watching this video. Enjoy watching. Remote work is one of the best decisions I've ever made, and not just because of the peace or convenience. Last year, thanks to a stable income and a thoughtful approach to finances, I was able to buy my first apartment. Yes, with a mortgage. Yes, not a penthouse, but it's mine. Every wall, every shelf, every warm lamp in the corner is chosen by me, made for me. A corner table by the window, overlooking an old maple tree, 2 monitors, a mechanical keyboard with a soft click. Everything is perfectly tailored to my life. Here I can work for hours, walk until late at night, not noticing how time passes, and still find the strength for an evening with a book or embroidery, for which I suddenly have a passion. I have an older sister, Sarah, and if I am a shadow, then she is a fire. Sarah enters the room, and everything seems to freeze, blinded by her energy. She is a walking holiday, a magnet for smiles. Over the past 5 years, her life has changed dramatically. She married Tom, a tall, smiling guy who always has a joke to suit any mood. They already have 2 children now, Emma, a lovely curly-haired baby with Sarah's eyes, who recently turned 4, and Jake, a chubby and serious kid who just turned 2. Sarah works in marketing, manages to take the children to clubs, be a support for her husband and, by some miracle, remain the soul of the company, regardless of the time of day. Our parents, they admire her. At every family dinner, the same thing sounds: Sarah is so good, Sarah is the perfect mom, Tom suits her so well. And all this sounds like a spell at the table with the clink of forks. And then there's that awkward moment when their eyes turn to me, and I see it in those looks. It's not exactly disappointment, but rather anxiety, expectation, and an alarming comparison. Leslie, you're already 28, Mom says, looking at me like I'm a lost suitcase at the train station. Don't you think it's time to find someone special? She asks, in a voice that always has a hint of hope, as if I've just forgotten what it's like to fall in love. I usually shrug my shoulders and say something like, I'm focused on my career right now, which, in general, is true, but Mom doesn't back down. What about friends? You hardly leave the house, and then Dad always intervenes in the conversation, trying to protect me, but doing it, as always, clumsily. She has friends, he says. They chat online all the time. They look at each other, Mom and Dad, with that special look that parents exchange when they feel that their child is being stubborn or doing something not according to their script. Mom sighs. It always happens the same way: a glance down, then up, a light sigh, and the phrase, it's not the same thing, dear, you need real connections. But the most difficult thing is not their concern, not their questions. The most difficult thing is family gatherings in a wide circle, when everyone gathers, aunts, uncles, cousins, and brothers, and everyone feels entitled to ask the same, painfully familiar question. Aunt Linda, for example, repeats like clockwork, time is ticking. Leslie, don't wait too long to settle down. and Uncle Mike even tried to introduce me to someone last Christmas. He's a nice guy, he works in accounting, he said, it's a very stable job. Of course, I politely declined, but he continued to insist, as if he hadn't heard me. Mom, as usual, tried to intervene. She took my side, but she did it in a way that only made it worse. With an apologetic smile, she said, Leslie is just very introverted. She needs more time. After another such family gathering, filled with glances, smiles and a constant underlying feeling that I was a guest from another universe, my parents, as always, found a moment to talk to me separately. They sat me down in the living room, away from the noisy kitchen, where Sarah was laughing with Aunt Linda, and began their usual, almost ritualistic conversation, the one that begins with the phrase, "We just want to talk," and ends with the feeling that I was again being carefully cut out of my own life and inserted into someone else's script. We were a little uncomfortable when I didn't show any interest in that offer from Mike, Mom began, coughing as if she was embarrassed by her own words. Dad added casually, and when you were on the phone most of the evening. Well, we could at least have a little chat with people. I sighed, but controlled myself. I'm happy, Mom, I said softly, not raising my voice, not getting into arguments. I'm really happy, Mom nodded, but her eyes were full of worry. You're just so different from the rest of us, Dad interjected, as if summing up, and I knew he didn't want to prick me. He just couldn't understand why I didn't fit into their usual idea of what a normal life should look like. I stopped arguing a long time ago. Now I just nod, let them talk, listen, but don't try to convince them. Somewhere deep inside, I have long decided for myself, this life is mine, I live it in my own way, I don't bother anyone, I don't do harm, I don't destroy anyone's plans, I work, pay the bills, and sometimes even help my parents when they have difficult months. Isn't that enough? Apparently, not enough, because they continue to look at Sarah as a model, as if she were a visual textbook on how to properly live a woman's life. Sometimes I find myself having a bitter thought, do they love me for who I am, or do they just put up with me, hoping that one day I will turn into someone else, the one they imagined? Last month, while scrolling through my Facebook feed, I came across my mom's joyful post. She wrote about how she was preparing a big party at the country club for her birthday, enthusiastically talked about the beautiful hall, shared photos with a view of the lake, and talked about how she wanted to spend this day surrounded by her family and friends. Despite our regular misunderstandings, despite everything, I immediately marked this date in the calendar, cleared my day, because, anyway, it's my mom's birthday, and I love her. Being there at such moments is important to me. The next day, when I was sitting at my computer, stuck in a complicated debugging session, there was some kind of murky error in the query processing logic. Suddenly the phone rang. It was Sarah. I answered, clutching the phone with my shoulder, and continued clicking on the lines of code. Hi, Leslie, she said cheerfully, did you see Mom's post about the party? Yes, I saw it, everything looks great, the club is really very beautiful. She was silent for a moment. Then added, that's actually why I'm calling. I thought maybe we could chip in for some cool gift for Mom, something not just symbolic, but really special. $2,000 is not the smallest amount, but I am already used to unexpected financial requests from my family, and Mom really deserves a good gift. I was saving up, and I could generally afford to spend it. Plus, over the years, I've supported my parents more than once. I've helped with car repairs, paid for medicines, and transferred money to groceries. Okay, I replied, I'll translate it right away. You're just a miracle, Sarah rejoiced. Mom will be thrilled. I opened the banking application and, without delay, sent money to her account. I knew that she had a talent for gifts. She would definitely find something special that would bring tears of joy to her mother. The morning of the party started as a celebration. I woke up early, with pleasant excitement, and it was unusual, because I usually went to family meetings as if for an exam, but this time, for some reason, there was a warm feeling inside. I even chose a new dress, a simple, dark blue one with a neat waistline and light sleeves, perfect for a cozy country club lounge. I straightened my hair, put on a little makeup, and even, to my surprise, I was looking forward to the evening. Maybe this time it will be different. Maybe this time I will feel like a part of the family, and not a strange element, a stranger in the background. Around 10 in the morning, I decided to call my mom to clarify the details and at the same time calm myself down. I dialed the number, clutching the phone a little tighter than I needed to. "Hi Mom, I just wanted to clarify, is everything still valid? What time should I get there?" There was a strange silence on the other end. It took a little longer than usual, and I was about to ask again when Mom finally spoke, and her voice sounded particularly restrained and strained. "Oh, honey, I'm afraid we're going to have to cancel the party." It took me a moment to figure out what she was talking about. "Cancel?" I asked, and my heart involuntarily tightened. "I feel really bad today," she continued. "Yesterday I was so worried about all these preparations, bookings, calls, discussions with catering, the pressure rose. I had to call an ambulance. They said I just need to rest." Mom's voice was weak, but still restrained, with that familiar note, as if she was embarrassed to be a burden. At that moment, I felt something painfully constrict inside, somewhere deep, under my ribs, as if the air had suddenly become heavier. "Mom, are you sure you're okay? Do you want me to come?" "I can be with you in 20 minutes. The words escaped my lips before I had time to think about them, because no matter what, despite all the insults and strange conversations, it was my mother, and if she was feeling bad, I had to be there. "No, no, honey, don't bother," she replied quickly, too quickly, as if she was trying to convince me more than herself. "I'm sure you already had some plans for the day. Dad's here. He's helping. I'm not alone. When I feel better, we'll arrange something more modest, a family dinner just for the closest ones." I paused. "Are you absolutely sure?" "I'll cancel everything, honestly, really, dear, it's not worth it. I'll call you myself when I feel better, okay?" "Okay, Mom, recover. If you need anything, just tell me." When I hung up, my concern for her didn't go away. High blood pressure, an ambulance, the cancellation of a party, none of this sounded like a slight indisposition. I even mentally scolded myself a little for believing her cheerful voice, but I decided to trust her. If Mom says that everything is under control with her, maybe there really is no point in rushing. I suddenly had a whole day off, and to distract myself, I texted Jessica. We haven't seen each other for a long time, and I suddenly realized how much I miss easy, calm communication, not with my family, not with colleagues, but just with a friend with whom I can drink coffee in silence and not feel guilty. We met at our favorite corner store, the one where they always keep fresh lavender, scented candles and old books in a basket by the cash register. We wandered through the boutiques, tried on hats, which none of us, of course, bought, but we laughed like teenagers and did not rush anywhere. Then we sat down in a cafe where the walls are decorated with photographs of the old town, and ordered a latte and a slice of pie, the lemon one that Jessica loves. We talked about work, strange clients, TV series, and how sometimes it's hard to be an adult woman when everyone around you demands that you be either a saint or a sorceress. It was a surprisingly warm time, not a drop of tension, just lightness and sincerity. This type of communication is really close to me, without noise, without commitment, without expectations. When I returned home in the late afternoon, I was finally going to get comfortable in an armchair with a book that I had been putting off for a long time, but before opening the first page, I decided to take a quick look at social networks, just to check if my mother or one of her relatives had written about her condition. Instagram, Facebook. I've never been active on Facebook or Instagram, preferring to remain an observer rather than a participant. Scrolling through the feed gave me the feeling that I was aware of the lives of others, without risking getting involved in their emotions. I usually look at what Amy, my cousin, posts. She's one of those people who posts photos of every meal, every trip, every little thing that seems significant to her, and it was at her place that I saw the photos that instantly caught my eye. At first it was just shots from some kind of party, delicious snacks, champagne, candles on the tables, expensive tablecloths, people in elegant clothes. But then, looking closer, I realized, I know these people. They were our relatives, the ones that usually gather for big holidays. The smile slowly faded from my face when I saw that the photos had originally been posted on Sarah's account, which, to be honest, I hadn't been following. I went to her profile. The ribbon was colorful and joyful, and everything became clear terribly quickly. Dozens of photos are from exactly the country club Mom was talking about, the same club where, as I was told, the party was cancelled. Sarah marked the place, and the pictures were captioned, "Celebrating our mom's special day. What a magical celebration for the most wonderful woman." I scrolled through each photo slowly, with a kind of painful persistence, Mom is wearing an emerald green dress, her face is glowing, she is laughing, holding a tall glass of champagne in her hand. Dad is in a gray suit, hugging her by the shoulders. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, everyone was there. Flowers, live lights, laughter, noise, joy, everything that was supposed to be, all except one. I wasn't in any of the photos, neither glimpsed nor in the shadows. I wasn't invited, I was expelled. I sat staring at the phone screen in disbelief, and suddenly there came a clear, simple realization, like a nail in the wall. Mom did not cancel the party, she lied to me. They all went to celebrate without me, and judging by these photos, no one, not a single person, even noticed that I wasn't there. My hands were literally shaking as I kept scrolling through the photos, one by one, as if hoping to find some kind of explanation, some absurd frame that would turn everything around and tell me no, this is a mistake, you misunderstood. But everything I saw only confirmed the most terrible thing. In one photo, my mother, beaming and happy, was cutting a huge, multi-layered cake decorated with golden curls, which looked custom-made, expensive, and festive to the point of indecency. On the other, she was unwrapping gifts, and I noticed a familiar box with the jewelry house's logo, the one that Sarah discussed with me on the phone when she offered to chip in for something special. The gift I transferred $2,000 to, $2,000 for the decoration, which was handed out without me, in the hall where I should have been if everything had been fair. But there was no honesty. They didn't just forget to invite me, they deliberately excluded me, they lied, they took my money and spent the evening pretending I didn't exist. I was sitting in the dark of my room, my phone in my hands, my heart pounding like a drum, my thoughts racing, and inside there was not emptiness, no, not even resentment, but a sharp, cutting feeling of betrayal. I've never felt so betrayed in my life, so excluded from my own family, as I did that night. My first impulse was to grab the phone and immediately call Mom and Dad, demand an explanation, and shout into the phone everything that was boiling inside. How could they deceive me like that? How dare they take the money, lie, and then arrange a party as if I were an extra element interfering with their perfect family picture? But the longer I sat there, the more silence grew inside me. Some part of me just shut down. I realized that I didn't want to hear their excuses. I don't want to listen to the usual veiled phrases like "we thought you would be uncomfortable" or "you don't like big gatherings." No, I didn't need words this time. I got up, went to the kitchen, made myself hot chocolate with cinnamon, sat in an armchair, wrapped myself in a blanket and just let myself be silent, not in front of them, but in front of myself. But the strangest thing happened later. A day passed, then another, and more. Complete silence, no messages from Mom, no phone call, not even a short "how are you?" Dad was silent too. There was no mention of her being ill, no invitation to the promised family dinner in a small circle, no signs of shame or regret. It was as if they were completely satisfied with everything as it turned out. They threw a party, paid for it with my money, dispensed with the inconvenient daughter, and now they were just enjoying the memories as if nothing had happened. Everything was too smooth, too thoughtful, and that, perhaps, hurt the most, because no matter how hard I tried, there was no room for me in their family formula. I put the whole situation out of my mind as abruptly as throwing a letter in the trash, firmly deciding that since it was so convenient for them to live as if I wasn't there, I could live like that too. I focused on my work, talked more with friends online, returned to my hobbies, and strangely, for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace, without the looming, oppressive burden of family drama, without the feeling that you need to be someone else to earn warmth. It's been about 2 weeks, and then one evening, when I was trying to figure out a particularly stubborn piece of code that didn't want to compile, my phone suddenly vibrated. Message, from my mom. I automatically unlocked the screen, and my heart skipped a beat when I read, "Hi, honey, I hope you're doing well. Could you transfer us $2,000 for the mortgage payment this month? Dad and I are a little short, thank you, I love you." I reread the message 3 times, slowly at first, then faster. And each time, a wave of distrust rose inside, which soon turned into a real rage. They had the nerve, after everything, after lying, after a party I wasn't invited to, after a stolen holiday in silence, they just write as if nothing had happened and ask for money, more money. I looked at the screen and asked myself, how can you be so shameless? How can you break a man, push him out of the family, and then reach out, not for forgiveness, not for understanding, but for a new sum. My fingers were shaking, but I typed the answer clearly, without hesitation. I'm not going to become an ATM for people who betrayed me and deceived me. Look for the money somewhere else. I clicked send and, without waiting for a reaction, opened Sarah's Facebook page. I found the very photo where mom is standing in the center of attention, with a cake, with a glass, with a crowd of happy faces around, took a screenshot. I attached it to the next message and sent it to my mom, without a signature, without explanation, because there was nothing to explain. After that, I turned off my phone, for good. I poured a new hot chocolate into a mug, this time with marshmallows, settled down on the couch and finally allowed myself to exhale. I felt a strange, unfamiliar mixture of anger and satisfaction, because, for the first time in a long time, I said everything I thought. Without a filter, without trying to please, without fear of being rejected, because they have already been rejected, and this time I turned away in response. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, even before the sun finally came out of the horizon, because I had an important video conference scheduled with a client from another time zone, and I needed to look cheerful, confident, collected, and clear. Even if the shadow of last night was still turning inside, I was pouring myself a cup of coffee when I remembered that I had turned off my phone the day before, and when I turned it on, I almost dropped the cup from pop-up notifications. The screen was immediately filled with dozens of missed calls, from Mom, Dad, Sarah, even from Tom. Although he usually avoided interfering in our family affairs, the mailbox was overflowing, as if a storm had hit me overnight, which I couldn't hear behind the thick walls of my silence. I started opening the messages, at first restrainedly, then with an increasing sense of heaviness. All the texts were different in length and tone, but the essence was repeated like a spell. There was a misunderstanding. You misunderstood everything. We just want to talk, explain ourselves, let's discuss it, please call me back. Some of the messages were almost a plea, others were almost an accusation. And then I moved on to voice calls. In one, my mother cried, sobbing, saying that she did not understand why I had become so cruel. How could I be so cold, because she was my mother? In another, Dad, on the contrary, sounded angry, demanding that I stop acting like a child and immediately stop ignoring my own family. Sarah, as always, tried to be a diplomat. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. Leslie, please, just let us tell your story. It's not what you think. This can be settled if you at least listen to us. But I didn't want to listen. I felt that no words could erase what had been done. Instead of answering, I opened my contacts and began methodically blocking them. Mom's number, Dad's number, Sarah, the volumes are just in case. Then I went further, blocking in messengers, in social networks, in email. I even deleted them from my emergency contacts list, and when it was done, when there was complete, pure silence, I felt such relief, such a calm emptiness that I had previously experienced only after the most successful release of the project. I finished my morning chores, held a meeting with a client, answered emails, and suddenly realized that I was more focused than ever. For the first time in a long time, my thoughts were not jumping between pain and disappointment, not revolving around another what if. I was just working, I was just me. But, as I expected, it wasn't that simple. A couple of days later, calls started coming from unknown numbers. At first, I picked up the phone, suddenly a client, suddenly something urgent at work, but as soon as I heard Mom or Dad's voice on the other end, I immediately hung up, without even letting them finish. They were obviously calling from other people's phones or using work numbers. Sometimes I felt like a detective, figuring them out by their voice or their distinctive breathing before I hung up. It went on for almost a week, like an insistent echo that you can't banish. They wanted to break through, break into my space, even when I made it so clear that the doors were closed. And then one afternoon there was a knock on the door. I shuddered, looked up from the screen, went to the door and looked through the peephole, and my chest literally turned cold. They were standing there, all, Mom, Dad, Sarah, even Tom. They were standing in the hallway, lined up like a delegation, with a kind of determined, almost stern expression on their faces. Dad spoke first. His voice could be heard even through the door. Leslie, we know you're home, we're not leaving until we talk to you. I didn't want to let them in, my heart was pounding and my palms were sweating, but I knew that if I didn't open the door, they wouldn't leave. I also knew that I didn't want the neighbors to witness the scene, so, taking a deep breath, I turned the lock, opened the door a crack and, without leaving, asked, "What do you want?" Mom took a step forward, her face looked tired, and her voice trembled slightly. "Please, dear, just let us explain ourselves, we need to talk." Contrary to logic, which screamed no, I stepped aside and opened the door wider. They entered the apartment, one after the other, and stood awkwardly in the living room, as if they didn't know where to place themselves. Mom spoke first, as always. "Leslie, we're so sorry, we didn't mean to hurt you, we just wanted to protect you." I raised my eyebrows. "Protect? From what exactly?" My voice was cold, but not harsh. Sarah stepped forward, her face tense. "You know how our family gatherings go," she said. "Everyone always asks you questions, they're getting personal, over and over again. Why are you alone? When will you have someone? When will you finally settle down? We just wanted to get you out of this." "We thought it would be awkward for you," Sarah began, but I immediately noticed how in her quiet, streamlined words there was again a desire to smooth over, disguise, pretend that everything was just a mistake, a misunderstanding, an absurd coincidence. "Is that why you decided to lie to me?" I said it evenly, without strain, but with the same intonation that should have sent an icy touch down the back of the interlocutors. Mom, as if she hadn't heard, said, "We didn't want you to feel obligated to come if you were uncomfortable." Dad added, "You said yourself that you don't really like big family parties." I looked at them standing in the middle of my living room, a little confused, a little tense. In an attempt to look contrite, she suddenly felt almost detached surprise. They really thought that I would believe in this made-up, carefully polished story. "Do you really think I'm that naive?" I asked, and neither of them dared to answer. They started talking at the same time, interrupting each other, trying to make excuses, scattering apologies, incoherently, loudly, as if this noise could drown out the truth itself. But I raised my hand, she just raised her hand, and the room was so quiet that you could hear the clock in the kitchen counting down the seconds. "Do you want to know what I think really happened?" I said. "I think you were ashamed of me. It's not awkward, it's embarrassing. I think you didn't want your friends and family to see your strange, withdrawn, antisocial daughter, who doesn't fit your cute, comfortable family template." Mom lowered her eyes. Dad blushed. Tom looked like he wanted to disappear. He literally clutched at his shoes, as if he could find a portal to another dimension in them. Sarah opened her mouth as if to protest, but there were no words. "And the most disgusting thing," I continued, and my voice became quiet, almost a whisper, which only made me angrier, "you took my money, the $2,000 I used to help you buy that present, a gift that was given at a party where I wasn't invited. You are not just liars, you are thieves, speculators on family feelings." Mom gasped. "Honey, it's not fair," she began, but then stopped. "We spent so much on that party that we just didn't have enough left for the mortgage payment this month," she muttered, as if swallowing a bitter pill. "Yeah, that's the real reason." After all, the truth had slipped out like a snake from a crack. "So that's it," I said, not even trying to hide my sarcasm. "You spent a lot of money to make an impression, bragged to the guests, put on a show, and now you want me to cover for you again?" Again? It seemed to me that I was burning from the inside out, but this fire was not destructive, but purifying. "Do you know what really hurts? I've been helping you for years. I was losing count, car repairs, medical bills, roof replacement, Sarah's wedding, force majeure, vacation on the coast. I've given you tens of thousands of dollars, dozens, Mom, and that's how you paid back." They were all silent. The silence in the room was almost viscous, like thick syrup. "I'm tired of being your personal ATM, I said, calmly now, without shouting. "I'm tired of supporting people who consider it the norm to lie to my face. Take my money and cut it out of my life. If you really need money for a mortgage, go and ask those with whom you are not ashamed to share photos, the ones you laughed with while I was sitting at home worrying about how my mom was feeling." They started talking again, intermittently, and one of them even seemed to apologize, but I was no longer listening. I just looked at them, and my voice was tired but firm. "I want you all to leave my apartment, immediately, and I don't want to see any of you at least for a while." Tom, to be honest, looked almost relieved. Sarah was crying softly, turning away, as if that could somehow hide her tears. Mom and Dad tried to argue, to persuade, but I repeated over and over again, like a spell, like a mantra, "Go away, now." And at some point they realized that I would not back down. They came out, one after the other, and when I closed the door, It was as if I had cut off not just a visit, but a whole layer of old pain. I was leaning against the door, and there was a strange, heavy feeling in my chest, a mixture of fatigue and some kind of proud clarity. I knew I had done the right thing, I knew I didn't want to bend anymore, but inside it was empty, as if all the energy, all the nerves, all the feelings had been wept out in one evening. I thought that was it, that there would be silence now, but I was wrong. Over the next few days, calls and messages returned, only now from new, unknown numbers. Sometimes it was an apology, long, sweeping, desperate, sometimes, reproaches. In one message, Dad wrote that Mom's blood pressure had risen again and it was my fault. That's when I realized they hadn't changed, they didn't understand, they were still playing the same game: manipulation, blame shifting, emotional pressure. They still wanted me to feel guilty for their actions, for their choices. And then the Broad family intervened. Aunt Linda called to say that I was overreacting. "It's a family, Leslie," she said. "A family should forgive a family." And Uncle Mike, the one who once tried to marry me to a colleague's son, now wrote on Facebook that I should be wiser. The wiser thing to do, apparently, is to close my eyes again and pretend that I wasn't betrayed. One afternoon, when I was sitting by the window with a cup of freshly brewed tea, watching the light movement of the clouds and looking for some peace in the sky, I saw a familiar figure on the sidewalk. Cousin Amy, in her bright coat, was resolutely climbing the steps of my old house. She went to the door and rang the bell, but I didn't even move. I just quietly retreated to the back of the room and froze until she left. I couldn't talk to her, not after she, like everyone else, pretended that the problem was with me, as if my disappointment and pain were unfounded, but just a whim. The most painful thing about this story was this: they behaved as if I had lost my mind because I dared to be upset, because I considered lies and betrayal to be the reason for the breakup. They said that the family should forgive, that one should be able to forget, close one's eyes, go forward, as if everything that happened was not a hoax, but a trifle. I'm tired, as it only happens when you're being convinced for a long time that your feelings are wrong. Instagram, Instagram, and even my old email account, which sometimes received letters from Uncle Mike with wise quotes. I did what I should have done a long time ago. When my parents came to my door again, I didn't answer it. When Sarah tried to intercept me at the vegetable shelves in the supermarket and started talking as if nothing had happened, I silently turned around and left without saying a word. After 2 weeks of these constant intrusions into my life, endless talk to us, "We love you," and "Be an adult," I realized that's enough. Stop letting yourself be pushed and made to feel guilty. I called Jennifer, my old friend and real estate agent. We didn't have a long explanation. She knew what such a call meant. "I need a place, calm, protected, to start all over again," I said, and she, as always, made the impossible possible. A month later, I had a new apartment, bright, quiet, in a different area, about 20 minutes away from my old home, but still close enough to the office so that I could stop there if necessary. The house was new, modern, with good security and a code access system, a detail that I suddenly began to appreciate especially. I planned everything down to the smallest detail. I planned the move on a weekday, when the neighbors and potential observers would be at work. I hired a professional company, updated my address at the bank, at my employer, at the tax office, and arranged for mail forwarding. And, of course, she didn't say a word to anyone from the family. We didn't talk anyway. What difference would it make? Only a few people got my new address: Jessica, my close friend Mark from college, and a couple of colleagues I really trusted. I also completely changed my phone number, and that day, when the last box was unpacked and the internet started working in my new apartment, for the first time in a long time I felt like I had started all over again, clear, calmly. It felt like I was being given back not just space, but control over my life. It's been almost a month since I moved in, when I was sorting through my morning mail and found one of the promotional emails that made my heart sink for a moment. It was from my mom, a simple, short message: "Leslie, we found out that you've moved. No one told us where. Your number doesn't work. We understand that you're angry, but don't you think you're punishing us too much? We miss you. We want to fix everything. Please answer." I closed the letter. Then she opened it again. She read and reread, pursing her lips. The first reaction was simple: not to answer, let them think whatever they want. But another thought arose inside: maybe it's time to set boundaries after all, not for them, but for myself. I wrote the answer without unnecessary emotions, without pity. I really moved. I needed the distance, I needed time, and you knew it. I'm not ready to talk. I have not forgiven you. I still feel the pain of what you did, and if I'm ready to talk, I'll get in touch myself. Please respect my decision and don't try to break it. I clicked send, and that seemed to be the end of it. In the following weeks, silence, and, to my surprise, this silence turned out to be incredibly fruitful. Freed from the constant feeling of guilt, from trying to meet someone's expectations, I felt my strength returning. I slept better. She worked with more dedication. Even my colleagues noticed the changes. The boss assigned me an important project, a big, ambitious one, the one I dreamed of. If everything goes well, it could lead to a raise, but it wasn't just his career that began to recover. One evening, when I went to a meeting with friends, Jessica introduced me to a man named David. He was a graphic designer, worked in a marketing agency, and was calm, with a warm look and an easy manner of speaking, as if every word had weight. We were talking about books, movies, and work, and suddenly I found myself laughing, sincerely, easily, and without tension. I haven't felt so alive in a long time. We met at Jessica's birthday party. It was noisy, fun, someone made a spontaneous toast, someone had already overdone the wine, and I, as usual at such events, stood a little apart, at a bookshelf, holding a glass and thinking about how long I needed to stay for it to be considered polite. I was about to slip away quietly when he came up to me. David, without an onslaught, without unnecessary jokes. I just quietly stood next to him and noticed that we have the same tastes in fiction. I usually feel constrained in situations like this, as if I have a sign saying can't talk small, but it was different with him from the very beginning. There was no rush, no judgment, and he didn't expect me to have fun, chat, or pretend to be someone else. He was an introvert, but of a different kind, not someone who hides from the world, but someone who just knows how to be in silence without feeling awkward in it. He didn't say much, but every word he said was warm, calm, deliberate, and real. We've already gone on a few dates, and the more I get to know him, the more I realize that I don't have to explain to him why I am the way I am. He doesn't want to remake me. He doesn't ask questions that start with the words, "Why did you never?" It seems that he just sees something of his own in me, and that's enough for me. It was my birthday last week. It's not a big date, it's not a big event, but I decided that I wanted to celebrate it in my own way, quietly, comfortably, without all this pretense of solemnity, which always seemed alien to me. We gathered in a small restaurant, me, Jessica, Mark, David, and a couple of other people who have become especially close to me over the past few months. We laughed, shared stories, and raised glasses to all the good things that had finally started happening in our lives. Then we returned to my house, ordered a cake, opened a bottle of red wine, and just sat there enjoying the evening light, the sound of music, and the warm atmosphere. It was exactly the celebration I dreamed of, without pressure, without expectations, without pretense, a small, intimate circle of people who don't demand that I justify my existence, but simply rejoice that I am. And the next day, when I was checking my email, I saw the emails, from my mom, from dad, from Sarah, short, restrained words. Happy birthday, Leslie, we miss you, we love you, nothing else. There were no attempts to justify themselves, no hints of a continuation of the conflict, just words that could be the beginning or the end. I felt something tremble inside. These letters did not erase the pain. They did not return the trust, but I was genuinely touched that they remembered, that they found the strength to write. I didn't know what they expected from me in return, but I wrote a simple message to everyone. Thank you. No exclamation marks, no lengthy explanations. It was a small step, very small, but mine. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to fully forgive them for what happened. Betrayal still reacts painfully inside, like an old burn that got water on it. I still remember the evening when I realized that I was excluded from the party. I remember the lies, the money they took, and the calmness with which they then asked for more. These are not things that you just put up with. These are not wounds that heal quickly. But I'm starting to realize that holding on to pain means holding on to the poison that's poisoning everything around me. And maybe I'm not ready to let go completely yet, but I know for sure that I don't have to forgive in order to be happy. The last few months have been like a breath of fresh air after a long stay underwater, without this constant background noise, without tension, without the feeling that I need to be someone else. I became lighter, be more focused. At work, I have achieved a level of productivity that I could only dream of before. I was entrusted with a major project, and I did it. Even the boss praised it, and believe me, this is very rare. I've made new friends, people I can be myself with, and David, someone who doesn't rush me, doesn't ask me to change, just walks by my side. Sometimes I think, maybe this distance has benefited not only me, but also them. Maybe they had time to think, to realize, to see their mistakes, or maybe they are still the same people who would rather lie than admit that they are ashamed of their daughter, who does not fit into their ideas of normality. I don't know, and I probably don't want to know yet, because now I know one thing for sure. I will not re-enter into a relationship where I am required to obey, where my opinion does not count, where my feelings are rejected. If we ever become a family again, it will be on my terms, with clear boundaries, with respect, without manipulation and guilt. In the meantime, I'm building my life. I have a job that I love, I have a home that is well cared for, cozy, and mine. I have friends who don't ask me to explain why I didn't come to the party. I have someone who makes me feel whole, and finally, I have myself, the way I am, without having to constantly defend my decisions in front of those who should have been my support. The truth is, I do not know when I will be ready to forgive, maybe never, or maybe one day, but now I know I'm not ready, and that's okay. Because I finally realized that putting yourself first is not selfish, it's a concern, and I choose to take care of myself.